Troubling economic news for Trump at 100 days. Consumer debt has reached a record. Teenage ejected from plane and survives. This is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America with my own take on key stories from this past week focused on politics and business. In the famous Charles Dickens novel, A Tale of Two Cities, it opens with, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." Although let me focus on the last 100 days and troubling economic news for Trump at 100 days. The latest economic news is really not good. The economy slowed by as much as it was expected to grow in the first quarter. This was the biggest drop in 3 years. Further, new employment was half the projected amount. In the meantime, Trump gave his big 100 days address and made it sound like everything was rosy or soon would be. He did use the occasion for calling out Fed Chair Powell for not lowering interest rates. In fairness, the Fed has a tough job with trying to control inflation without killing the economy. The Trump administration does claim to be making progress with tariff talks with one of the biggest problems, that is India. Japan and Vietnam might be right behind. Rumors are that we may see the EU in that business light as soon. Of course, everything's negotiable. We're going to find out, aren't we? So on the positive side, the U.S. border is reporting record low incursions. Given how significant this is to Trump's base, that is certainly a positive. They've been also rounding up illegals with criminal records. Of course, the ridiculous soap opera of the Dems supporting the gang members and not their constituents is truly disgusting. I think everyone has heard of the idiots helping the illegals. The feds recently announced 2 separate arrests of a current judge and a former judge. There was the Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan, who let an alleged criminal illegal out the back door of her courthouse. Then the feds arrested former New Mexico Judge Joel Cano and his wife Nancy Cano for allegedly housing a Venezuelan national with reported gang ties. These are stunning situations. It's especially troubling to me as someone who's been an attorney for over 45 years and has tried cases in state and federal courts. Judges should be the models for following the laws. In another economic report, mortgage demand for homes has continued to drop. This is often a sign of a softening consumer market. This is consistent with the consumer outlook that is the lowest since 2011. Reports are that this was triggered by concern over the impact of the tariff wars. The silver lining to these reports are that China's export orders have dropped in response to the tariffs. I am so frustrated at being unable to purchase many products that I'd like to see made in the USA or by its allies. So much is made in China. Hope that we can turn that around, and soon. Putin sticks his finger in Trump's eye. On the good news, bad news front, things are worse in Ukraine. Putin has launched multiple missiles and drones against civilian targets in Ukraine. And I emphasize civilian targets. In just one such attack, at least a dozen civilians are dead and dozens more injured. This is despite Putin claiming that he wants to reach a deal. Trump has finally turned up the sanctions, but much more needs to be done. This is simply murder by Putin, nothing less. In an odd twist, Zelensky met with Trump privately while both were attending the late Pope Francis's funeral in Rome. Rumors are that this was prearranged. The deal for much more American help, in turn for America's access to rare earth minerals, is now being fast-tracked. Odd update to terrorist tragedy on New Year's Day in New Orleans. In a terrible event on a traditional night to party, a terrorist drove through the crowd on Bourbon Street in the early hours of New Year's Day. Incredibly, this was done by Army vet Shamsa Din Jabbar. There were 14 people killed and many more suffered injuries. He was later killed in a shootout with police. Now we learn there was a direct ISIS tie to the attack, and a person has been identified in Iraq. The suspect has not been identified. He is accused of helping Jabbar plan the attack. This person will be tried there under that country's anti-terrorism law. Of course, we're not sure what type of justice would happen in a country like Iraq that is definitely at odds with U.S. viewpoints. The FBI is still investigating leads while Louisiana plans a memorial for this horrible event. Consumer debt has reached a record. Total household debt in America now exceeds $18 trillion. Folks, that's half of the total national debt as a reference point. One report claims that when this debt is measured as a percentage of the country's GDP, Americans are worse off than people in Russia, Pakistan, and even the Republic of the Congo. My analysis is that this was a confluence of many factors. We have not emphasized smart finances in our schools. Students who cannot read, write, and importantly do arithmetic at a decent level cannot be expected to be sharp in their finances as adults. This was combined with the financial losses during the bungled COVID response and the Biden-Harris runaway inflation. We also have, for some insane reason, taken away much of the stigma of filing for bankruptcy. Related to this sobering report, think about the decline in GDP we reported above. The consumers cannot bail out the economy if they are already up to their eyeballs in debt. Now, providing more high-paying jobs is certainly a Trump promise. Can he deliver some of that before the 2026 elections that are already on the horizon? If the GOP loses either house in that election, reforms are over and the country will continue to careen towards default like a truck on a mountain road with no brakes. At the same time, we cannot fall victim to stupid bailout. In another troubling report, so-called subprime borrowers are behind on car payments at a level not seen in 30 years. Tied to this, FHA loans, which are often for the first time or early path mortgage borrowers, have also seen rising loan issues. One proposal which I find hideous is something called the Poor People's Campaign. Its supporters want to cancel housing, utility, and student debt for low-income people. First, with what money? Many states are in bad shape, especially populous California. The feds don't have it. Second, why are these people poor? We have already provided substantial social safety nets. What have we spent on the poor already? A great example of waste that is supposed to help the poor was the failed President Johnson's Great Society. That was a rework of FDR's New Deal. Neither plan worked. LBJ's plan wasted trillions of taxpayer dollars, plus all the Fed could borrow. Poverty got worse, not better. The Canadians are suffering. So what did they do? Canadians have been suffering under liberal leadership for over a decade. Their economy is in the dumpster. So what just happened? Liberal Mark Carney is the new PM. What? My friends in Canada were desperate for a turnaround. Remember the old adage that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Trump is to blame. His silly talk about Canada being our 51st state caused a revolution in Canada, but it was against Trump and what is viewed as conservatism. If Trump had kept his mouth shut, I believe the conservative was on track to win the PM slot 4 months ago. Hopefully, the situation will worsen in Canada. They really don't have the option to not deal with the USA. Then maybe the parties will kiss and make up from both sides of the border and they get down to business. I project this could take as much as 2 years now rather than a few months. Couldn't happen to a more deserving loser. Days after New York Attorney General Letitia James faces serious allegations about multiple mortgage fraud, none other than Trump accuser and Russiagate fraudster Adam Schiff has similar accusations. Reports that despite recently being elected a senator from California, the former California congressman has repeatedly claimed that houses in Maryland were his principal residence for mortgage purposes. His residency claims could also impact his election in California, since he incredibly claimed to be a California resident while officially living in Maryland and taking the mortgage advantage there. That's possible election fraud, folks. Icing on the cake was continuing to claim voter residence in California while not having a home in the state for both him and his wife. So welcome to the party, friends. This could be real interesting. Teenage ejected from plane and survived. The excellent article is the incredible story of Julianne Kopechne, the teenager who fell 10,000 feet out of a plane and somehow survived. The incident happened on Christmas Eve, 1971. She was traveling with her mother. Only Julianne survived due to the amazing fall and recovery. She has graduated from high school the day just before the accident. She blacked out during the incredible fall. When she woke up, she had a broken collarbone and a deep gash on her calf, and she slipped back into unconsciousness. She began, when she woke up, to seek her mother, but to no avail. She was blessed with good advice from her zoologist father: follow a stream downstream, since there's often civilization downstream. She began her trek. She found some sweets in the wreckage. She could hear searchers in the air, but could not be seen due to the dense vegetation of the Peruvian rainforest. 11 days later, she came across 3 loggers who helped her to a hospital. She was later reunited with her father and found that her mother had perished. Her post-accident life was difficult due to the media coverage, but she persisted. She went on to obtain her PhD and returned to the site for a documentary. Later, she wrote a book about her experience. That book is called When I Fell from the Sky. While we've not interviewed Julianne, Saving America did interview Kechi Okuchi. She was one of only 2 survivors of a plane crash in her native Africa in 2005. Later, she came to Shriners Hospital nearby in Galveston for more advanced medical care. She then was one of my wonderful students. She's got a beautiful voice and was later a finalist on America's Got Talent. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.